we've been looking at the last few days. I feel like we've had this epic road trip, ferry trip around Scotland to see sites at risk.
Several folks have asked me on this trip, so what does Scotland have to do with the U.S. and the National Park Service?
The fact is, you're losing your coastlines rapidly, and so are we. So it's a similar problem.
And a lot of it has really resonated with sites we have in Florida.
Actually, the whole coast, the coastal sites all the way around the states.
That are eroding out of similar sand dune structures.
There's a lot going on. I think I was struck with not only the number of sites that we've seen,
the extent of your occupations, the length of time is just amazing.
but all of the complexity and the potential information that lies behind them.
So we've been on Sandy for the past couple of days, looking at various coastal heritage sites.
The island shape is like a dragon, and on each, how to say, on each end of the dragon, there are some exposed archaeological features.
It's a major part of this island's heritage, the archaeology.
Certainly there are sites here which are unique in the British Isles.
This is the first time I visited Sandy, and it didn't take long to realise that many of the coastal heritage sites are really susceptible to things like coastal erosion.
Yes, it's a big problem here because Sandy is really low-lying. So every winter we get huge tides and huge winds.
Especially on this island, the winter storms can be so horrific.
Coastal erosion is an issue that's exacerbated by climate change, sea level rise, changes in patterns of storms and intensity of storms.
Hearing from the community members and people working on the islands about the way the coastline has been retreating in certain places over the last few years, and how they are in their own lifetime seeing more climatic events, more serious storms.
Yeah, we've got an old broch, 100 yards from the main farmhouse maybe. It's been a substantial building at one time, but it's disappearing.
And I live near the Scar boat burial one, so I keep an eye on that, and there's more of that being exposed.
Yeah, well, there was a big storm and I got under the beach to see what like the wall was, because it was undermined, and I found all the stones sticking up out of the beach, so I went in and got Ruth, my wife, to come and have a look.
This particular one here at Muir is a case in point, and one of these days there will be a major storm, force 10 and 12, and it will wash the whole thing away.
I've experienced a whole range of emotions from, oh my gosh, we can't save that, to how can we save that.
So I think this experience of meeting with communities, visiting sites, has really raised my appreciation for the seriousness of the issue.
If we do take a do-nothing approach, then we're potentially facing sort of fairly extreme loss.
If it's all going to be lost, it would be a shame that you couldn't find it and store it away somewhere that it's safe for future generations to see.
I think it's really important that these sites that are susceptible to coastal erosion and sea level rise are recorded appropriately.
Then start analysing what is possible here.
I think there must be a range of options for the sites.
Rescue them or record them or excavate them for future generations, and educate the kids. And
in an ideal world, we'd like them to be excavated, wouldn't we? Everybody would.
yes, well, the one at Muir that we've been working on, we had to relocate it because it was getting washed away.
Well, if it's something worth rescuing, they should rescue them, but if no, I mean, you maybe try and protect them, I don't know.
That's maybe on some of these sites as much as we can do, is to buy some time through coastal defences.
I think using of sandbags and community monitoring is a really good way of buying a bit of time and thinking about what the approaches might need to be as that heritage, as the artefacts and the archaeology within those sites are exposed.
To build walls around many of the sites would be far too expensive and not possible. And again, coastal defences have a lot of their own problems and have to be thought about on a site-by-site basis.
Well, they should be doing something, but I mean, the amount of this, you wouldn't be able to protect them all, so you'd need to just pick on the most important ones and try and rescue them.
It needs to be prioritised to see what the most important ones are.
One of the big questions that we face in Florida and also here in Scotland, is how do we prioritize sites? How do we, in the face of certain loss of a substantial amount of coastal heritage, how do we decide which sites to save, which sites to protect, which sites to excavate, and which sites to just walk away from?
And one of the other things that I think is also extremely important that I've been trying to fit into our larger model is saving a diversity of sites.
I think we should prioritise sites on the ones that you can actually see being eroded year by year, even month by month.
I really see it as an iterative process of trying to work through which sites are most at risk, why are they most at risk, what is the greatest value, and then working with those pieces to figure out the best next set of steps going forward.
That said, we have to figure out some tough ways to make choices, to either focus on a few sites and get a lot of information, or maybe to focus on a lot of sites, get little information.
The big thing that we've talked about, though, is significance.
Yeah, it's been haunting me a bit, this question of significance.
The values of sites have three major components. One is the intrinsic values.
I think that you look at, rarity, how many sites like that do you have recorded?
In terms of gaining the knowledge and exploring, getting a sense of the scope of the sites and perhaps what may be there, the potential that they have, is really important in terms of determining what sort of action people might want to take.
So what do we do with the sites for which we don't yet have the information? We don't know how important they are. We don't know what stories they contain.
Even when we know the significance, there's usually pockets we don't know. When we don't know if it's significant, then you're working with a truly blank slate.
And I really think we need to find a way to recover the who, what, where, when, why, and how for these sites.
We need to actually incorporate maybe a bonus sign or a plus sign or some other check mark to say this is a site that we don't yet know anything about, and we should put some emphasis toward sites that we have not yet explored.
And second is the social value. Well, by social, it also includes community, spiritual, you name it, this kind of values.
The local value, the significance of resources to local communities has got to be of importance.
The local significance, I mean, that's kind of what first initially shores up a site. So if it's not on their radar, if it's not significant to them, you've got a whole nother uphill battle of motivation to try and rally around some of these sites at risk.
But I think it's also important to think about the aspects of knowledge creation and knowledge sharing, and also the social dynamic, social value, and the ways in which community resilience and community understanding can be built.
I really think that the community and their ability to mobilize and do the recording and interpret it is really key.
I think it would be a big mistake to leave out the community. I think you'd find yourself in 100 years with sites that don't matter to people.
But if you're going to engage people and engage certainly the youngsters on the island, you've got to have a lot of discussion and good opportunities for people to be involved.
That the information is shared, artifacts are held within the community museums.
And the third one is economic values. And some of the sites can actually be used to create some, economic benefits.
There are businesses here who run on being holiday making businesses. So yes, having an economic attraction that is to do with archaeology coming here for holiday could also be good.
And it brings people to the island and helps with economy, because the archaeologists come and stay and eat and shop and
not probably wanting it to be enormous sites which attract cruise ships and would destroy the environment, but on the other hand involving people with what's here could be good.
Some of the opinions from local people was that it's almost an expert's position to be prioritising these sites.
Yes, need the experts, so then we can do it. Or we'll just go in with a pick and a spade and dig it up.
In an ideal world, then we would like to see that we get regular visits from archaeologists.
We need expertise and we need people from outside to help us, and I think collaboration is key here.
I think the emphasis should come from the local community, and then they should get all the necessary people round the table to talk about what the best approach would be.
Oh, well, that's up to the experts. I don't know enough about archaeology to ken what to do about that.
What I've seen over the last 10 days is really, that's how we can start some of those conversations. This is how we start to frame some of those discussions and get towards some of those decisions. So I've been so grateful for the chance to have those discussions, watch them happen, meet a lot of the people, and I'll be taking those stories back with me to the US.